Today, I want to talk with you about that situation where you need to job interview prep in a hurry. All right, so what's today all about? You know that problem you have whenever somebody wants to talk to you right away, they want to interview you right away, and you worry that you don't have enough time to get ready for the interview. Sometimes they want to talk that day, that afternoon, the next hour, the next morning, whatever it is. To that, I have to say, why on earth would we ever be worried or panic about a situation we desired to create? Add to which, and I will tell you that anyone who wants to talk with you in that short amount of time, anybody, they love your background. They talk their way. They want to talk to you because they want you. So no one, and I mean no one, would ever do that unless they were greatly interested in speaking with you, whether that was because you applied online through the applicant trashing system for their job, or maybe you sent them a boss hunting message, or maybe somebody called you totally cold. And I know that in the past, I've told you that if you pick up the phone or if you get an email and you're surprised, you want to get off the phone as quickly as possible because you don't want to talk to somebody unless you are in the right frame of mind, know who they are, know why they're reaching out and all that good stuff. But somebody who contacts you about an interview and wants you to prepare quick or wants you to be ready quickly, this is something we want. Doesn't that just right there make you feel a whole lot better about the situation? It's true. It's true. Think about what's actually happening. So why do we get nervous? The reason we get nervous is because on this channel, we play chess, not checkers. Your job search is chess, not checkers. It's bad strategy, bad planning, and you weren't in the right place or frame of mind to conduct something that you wanted. So we need to fix that. That's what today's going to be about. Yes, I'm going to tell you the areas I would focus on to prepare in a hurry for a job interview, but I'm not going to break this down like I'd spend 2 minutes on this and 3 minutes on that. That's ridiculous. You deserve more than that. It's like when I go to the doctor and I tell him, yeah, I got this pain running down my legs. There's nothing wrong with your leg. It's in your back. The problem is elsewhere. And for you, it's likely in the way in which you've sequenced or are conducting your job search, if you're even actually conducting one. So we're going to fix that for you today. And before we get into the here's how, I want to start it off with a little story because I want you to get in the right frame of mind. I want you to draw an analogy from my life and how this applies to you and why I would not worry in the least. All right, so the story starts with, I've basically spent, I don't know, seconds, not hours, not days, preparing for this talk. I've literally spent almost no time. And why would the story start like that? Because this is how I want you to think about your job search. I don't know how many seconds I have spent thinking about this talk today that's going to be 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and then I'm going to take a bunch of your questions. The grand total of the amount of time that I've spent preparing for this talk is the amount of time it took me to scratch these cards. That's it. This was my entire prep for this session today. It literally took me longer to set up all the technology and to get my screen in order with all the things I want to show you than it did for me to actually prep for this. Everything that's coming out of my mouth is coming out of my mouth for the very first time. I haven't even heard me talk this talk. I have practiced nothing. This story I'm telling you right now, never been practiced. So we're going to do it together. But why would I even tell you any of this? Because I want you to think for a second about me. And maybe you just found me, or maybe you've been following me for a long time. But it took me years to master the content domain of the things that I teach you. And how to put a lesson together with sequencing it, creating a right outline that includes the talking points, the steps I want you to follow, the bombs I want to drop, the key messages I want to drive home. I need to do it in a motivating and challenging manner so that you understand what to do next. And I need to keep that entire outline in my head as I go through this talk with an ability to focus and never lose track of anything that I'm doing so that my neurons are firing with a velocity that is great. So how long did it take me to master what I do and all the skills it takes to do this week in and week out for me to show up for you every Thursday? And you're thinking, Coach, Don't you love me? You won't even prepare for the talks you give me every Thursday? No, I love you so much that I show up every Thursday. And I worked so hard so that I could keep showing up every Thursday so that it only takes me seconds to prepare a talk that I can give you that hopefully makes your life better. So why am I telling you that? Because isn't there something that you do that you're that awesome at? Can I get a show of hands? You know your stuff. Why would you need an hour to prepare for an interview to explain to somebody what you do, how you're going to change their life? Am I right? Have you ever thought about that? Now, but let's be specific here because we're talking about your job search. And while you may be a master of your trade like I am of mine and all the skills that it takes, you are not a master at job searching. So I need to teach you so that you can compress the amount of time that it takes you to position yourself in a great direction with the right strategy so that you're deliberate, so that in seconds you can be ready to talk to somebody. But there are sequences and steps that you need to go through that I can literally hand walk you through so that when you get to the go line, when you're at start, and then it becomes hand-to-hand combat where somebody might want to talk to you 5 minutes from now, you're ready. And that's what this talk is going to be about. So I want you to think about that. What are you worried for? So that's the first thing. And whether you want to prep for 5 minutes or an hour, and rarely do you have to do that, but I never, ever want you to turn away somebody who wants to talk to you soon. Because why? Because the iron's hot. Baby, we don't want to let it cool down. Am I right? Can I get an amen on a Thursday or a Tuesday or whenever the hell you're watching this? Right? You with me? Who's with me? Who's charged? Give me a hey. Let me know you're here. All right. So let's run through it, eh? All right. First thing is, if you're ever in a situation where you're not ready to talk to somebody within minutes, there's something broken in your job searching chain. So let's fix all that first, shall we? Okay. So first thing that I wrote on my cards that I spent, I don't know, maybe 125 seconds writing. Actually, it might be a little longer because I made some mistakes and I had to clean them up. Meaning I made like handy hand typo mistakes. All right. First thing is, I want you to think of your job search in a static perspective and a dynamic perspective, okay? So there's a bunch of stuff you do up front that I want you to do, and I want it all complete, and you don't get an A until it's all done, because if in any way, shape, or form you send a message out into this world to create the situation you desire, which is somebody to want to talk to you, and you're not ready, you didn't do all your homework. So we're going to talk about the homework stuff first that you get to do in the comfort of your own home, just like mine, where you get to blueprint it. Nobody bothers you. All right, so number one and number two. I was trying to be very economical with my cards. Do you have your direction in order? Meaning, I know where I'm going. I know what I offer. I know the kinds of things that I want. You might not know exactly what the company looks like, but are you generally in marketing and you're going after software as a services companies, or are you generally in marketing and you're going after pharmaceutical companies or something like that, or in healthcare or healthcare systems or pharmacies or whatever? You have some kind of general direction. Okay, let's get that in order. And the second thing is you've got your requirements. And I call this a number of things. So if I say requirements, the things that I require as an employee in order to create the figurative and literal environment that I operate in every single day. I'm not talking about the home office or the corporate office. I'm talking about everything related to what you need, the kind of boss you need, the kind of people you want to work with, what the cultural environment looks like, everything. We're going to be real self-aware up front. I call it your needs. I call it your happiness factors. I call it your requirements, and they're all equal. So step numbers 1 and 2, if this is not done, you are not in a good position to talk to anybody, because even if your demigoddess of a company strolls up, you wouldn't know it because you are ill-equipped to evaluate it, and this takes more than an hour. Okay, so that's number one. If you're wondering, well, what the hey does that look like? I'm going to show you because I'm all about show and tell. Now, I have, as an executive recruiter, interviewed more than 20,000 people, literally, like spoken to them. The first over 12,000, I very diligently was tracking the things that were important to them. And I'm not saying the things that are important to all those people need to be important to you. I'm saying that if you're looking for multiple choice and you want a Kickstarter of the kind of things people generally care about, because what? It's easier to react than it is to create. Write that down, right? It's easier to react than it is to create, which is why a lot of this is really hard. So if you sat in front of me and I said, from a blank sheet of paper, can you please just write out a list of 25 things that you need and be as detailed as possible? You would hate me. I know that because those 12,000 people hated me because they would get fatigued after they said three or four things. They'd say, oh, I want a good company. I want a good job. I want a good boss, and I want a good payday. Yay. Okay, that's great. That narrows it down to like nothing. And then, so let's keep going. So the more narrow you go, the better off you are because you know specifically how you thrive. So what I did was I collected all of the things that those people told me and I categorized it into 18 or so different groupings that then can be broken down into further groups. And the people that are in my job search coaching program get this Excel spreadsheet. And the thing I want to share with you folks in the public domain is that generally people cared about appreciation. They cared about the atmosphere. They cared about autonomy. Now, what you're seeing here or not seeing here, you might notice as you look down here that there are a lot of rows that are missing. That's because I've hidden them in the spreadsheet because I break these down in much greater detail. What do I mean by that? Well, appreciation, you need to be specific. Has anybody heard of the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman? Right? Some people like acts of service. Some people want quality time. Some employees want you to show me the money. Some employees just want a pat on the back. Some employees would rather have the corner office. Some employees want all of it. So how do you specifically want to be appreciated? Because if you get into an environment where everybody looks really handsome and pretty and you get there and they're monsters and they don't ever say, great job. But they always say, what the hey you doing? That's not what I asked for. What's the matter with you? I thought you knew how to do this, right? If you keep operating in that mode and you didn't investigate it or know yourself to know that you need to make sure that there's commendations of a certain nature. But everybody's different. So the lines you're not seeing are some nomenclature I put in there for the people in the program so that they can at least get started on picking and choosing. So what I want you to do is I want you to create a list. I don't care if you use a spreadsheet. I don't care if you use a system. I don't care if you use Andy AI. I don't care if you use the back of a napkin. I don't care if you write on notepads like I do. It makes no difference. Make a damn list, please. That's 1 and 2. Okay? So then the other thing I want you to do, by the way, that has like 86 rows in there broken down for those people in case you want to get in that program. But number 3, 4, 5, 6, hang on a second. Just want to make sure I got everything. Okay. The other thing I want to tell you about your requirements is you need to make sure that in the requirements area, you have in alignment with your criteria, questions for the employer. Why do you want to do this first? So you could thoughtfully think about the areas you need to investigate, and then you're going to identify questions that help you understand whether they are appreciative of their employees. What might those questions be? How do you show appreciation for your employees? That's a stinky question, but it's a question for illustrative purposes. The last person who got promoted, what did you do? What happens in the promotion process? How is that person recognized? Were they given a pay raise? Can you just explain to me what that process looks like, how frequently you do it, what's required in order for somebody to get promoted, and so on and so forth? Okay, now, why do you want to do this up front? Every time you identify a need, you know how you all come to the shows and you ask me, hey, Coach Andy, what are some good questions I should ask in an interview? And I say, how the heck should I know? What do you want in a company? What do you want in a job? Every question you ask in an interview, when you ask it of the interviewer, is aimed at eliciting two major pieces of information. Is it a good company? And is it a good company for me? Right? If I go to Apple and I'm trying to investigate their financial stability, I know Apple's going to stick around. I know they're stable. Okay? That's great. And Apple's a good company. But is it a good company for me? I don't know. Will they let you work from home or not? Do they need somebody with your kind of experience? Do they offer structure, or is it more of a green field where you need to be able to operate in chaos or free form? I don't know. You got to ask the questions. All of that's done up front. So now when you get done with 1 and 2, these requirements have questions that you're going to be asking in an interview. And we're going to bookend the question asking, but I wanted to make a comment up front that you need to have questions that align to the things that are important to you. And then you can determine the level of priority of that need, and the higher the priority of the need, the more paramount you asking the questions in an interviewing process, not in an interview, in an interviewing process. You get the entire process to ask your questions. You don't need to ask all 87 questions in one interview. I don't care if you ask no questions in an interview if you run out of time. The goal is to sell yourself, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is to make a thoughtful career decision about working for an organization or choosing a career path or something of that nature. And that requires what? Information. And he or she who has more information makes a more educated decision. And the fewer blind spots you have, the greater the likelihood that you're going to make a sound decision. Okay, so you want to get your questions in order. I'm not sending a boss hunting message or applying online for any job until I have all that in order, so that when I'm asked to come to the interview, I'm ready with my questions. I don't even need to think about questions I need to ask them. I already got it all done. Number 3 and 4. Who loves this so far? Come on. We're only 17 in. All right. Target companies and their goals and problems. Why is this important? Well, I want to know who I'm targeting. I want to know the types of organizations for which I would be a good match. If I'm a project manager and I've implemented CRM systems for healthcare companies, I'm going to be targeting CRM positions for healthcare companies, for pharmaceutical companies, for health systems, for anything of that ilk. And what are the goals? Well, if I'm a project manager of IT, they probably want to implement IT solutions. That's one goal. On time and on budget, so I need to be proficient at managing projects. They might have different solutions or evolutions of technologies they need to go through. Maybe they're moving from a very archaic manual process to a system process. Maybe they need to implement a software solution that is packaged. You're buying it off the shelf and you're implementing it. Maybe they need to add an AI layer to it. Who knows? But you need to understand what their goals and problems are. And I have taught you in 1,000 videos about how to figure that out. This needs to be in order. And why does the goals and the problems need to be in order? Why do you need to know the goals and the problems? We haven't even gotten to write in your resume, right? Does anybody think I'm doing this backwards? Right? I haven't written a resume yet. Why? Because I don't know who I'm targeting and I don't know what their goals and problems are until I sit down and I identify them. Because why? I want to align everything I do in my resume to the targets based on their goals. Do you see I underlined that 3 times in red? Not your skills, not your history, not your I don't care what you've been through. It's all about them. You don't care how much time I spend in my office thinking about you. You don't care how much time it took me to shoot videos for you, to put them in a system. You don't care about that. What are you buying? You're buying a faster job search. You're buying a better job search. You're buying a better career choice. You're buying more pay, right? So I need to show you my resume when it comes to all of that stuff, not how I sit at home and make videos with my dachshunds. You follow me? Okay, so you're at step number 5, which is really kind of step number 6 because you're putting questions in there. Then what? Messages, emails, cover letters, networking messages. What do I mean here? Well, when you are going to start searching, I would not be building these things on the fly. I would be tailoring them on the fly. Does that make sense? So when I want to start job searching, we have not hit the start line yet. We're in the blueprinting phase. You are all the architects of your life. Be the architect of your job search. So what do I mean? Well, I want to get all of my speed rack in order, so I'm not thinking about any of that nonsense, okay? So what do I mean? Well, when I'm thinking about networking, this is what I'm talking about. Feel free to use my list, but only the people in my program can use my templates. All right, so these are some job search networking templates that I think you need to have in your speed rack. The reach out to a stranger who's likely not the boss. Boss hunting, I give these away free. Or maybe you're connected first degree. Oop. Hang tight. Maybe you're connected first degree. Dang, hang on. Maybe you're connected first degree to somebody who knows somebody at your target. Connection works at my target company. Hey, a buddy I used to work with. You get the idea. And then what I would say is there are also some boss hunting related templates I would create. I mentioned I give you these sample boss hunting messages, which you can download free from my website or from my YouTube channel. But then there's going to be some interaction. I'm not spending any time on the fly creating these. I'm using a speed rack I've already created, or if I'm not fortunate enough to have these in hand, then what I'm doing is each time I'm iterating through my search, I'm making a template of my response so that when I get that objection again, like, Andy, I boss hunted, yay, just like you said. And the boss got back to me and said, he wants me to put my resume into the applicant trashing system. What do I do? I've already told you. You put it in, and here's what you send that person back, and here's what you ask them, and so on and so forth. If I've already given you that, if you are not using these tools of mine, then when you write your response back, you need to package it, because every boss, every third or fourth boss that you target is going to say that to you. So you want to have that in order. I mean, you could do this on your own, or you could take my stuff, but either which way, have it ready. We still are only in the prep phase. We haven't gotten to the goal line yet, to the goal line. Next, power stories. Okay, remember this number, item number, whatever this was, the 3 and 4. When you have your goals and your problems, these are the things that they want you to solve. The person who articulates their fit and value in relation to their goals and their problems is the person who's going to get hired, okay? Now, for all of you, so that we can benchmark this group, you all have what? A job searching problem, but your goal is either to find a new job, meaning just switch companies, I still want to be an accountant here or there, or I want to change careers, that's a different problem, or I want to find a new job, that's my goal, but I need to move countries. That's a different suite of problems. And so what I'm doing is I'm thinking in advance about you, my target customer, my person in my community, the people I serve, and in your case, the target organizations. Well, what are their goals? What are their problems? You know what these are, and I've taught you in many other lessons how to figure this out if you don't already know. But if you don't already know, that's a little bit scary, because that means you really don't know what you're doing in your job. So what you're trying to do is, once you have this in order, you are going to figure out, I call them power stories. Power stories is Coach Andy speak for your bread and butter story that you know you're going to tell in every interview. Because why? Because this provides them the information that they need in order to know that I will help them achieve their goals by overcoming their problems. And the more specific your attainment of the goal, and the more specific the problems they have, which you've already solved, the infinitely greater likelihood that you're going to get hired. Okay, now, when somebody at live office hours or in the email or wherever, or my LinkedIn inbox, asks me, hey, Coach Andy, this is my situation. How does your program help me? They get a power story immediately, so to speak, for somebody that looks just like them, that helps them understand how their life is going to transform. I already know what the story is. I don't rehearse it. I don't have to rehearse it. Why? Because I lived it with that person or people that look just like that person. So what you're doing is going back to that example I alluded to a few minutes back, the IT project manager who's implemented CRM systems for healthcare companies or pharmaceutical companies or whatever it might be, that power story that maps to what that future organization needs, that thing's already baked, cooked, baked, and sitting there waiting to be told. And I still haven't sent out a message yet. This is blueprinting your search. This is strategy. This is what? The war is won before it's ever fought. You with me? So guess what? We get to go now. Okay, now we're ready. You with me? We're ready. Go send a message. Go apply online. Go do whatever it is you want to do. Because why? Because you're in order. Because your network, who would love to help you, cannot help you unless your story is crystal clear on where you want to go. The interviewer who wants to hire you cannot do that unless you give them the information they need to make a solid decision. You already have all of that now. Now you get into hand-to-hand combat. So right now, you've already got your direction in order. You got your requirements and you got these questions. You know your target companies and their goals and their problems. You got your resume that's aligned to their goals and their problems. You've got your messages that are aligned to their goals and their problems. You got your power stories that tell them how they're going to achieve their goals by overcoming the problems that you already know how to solve. And now you're going to go. Now you're worried about how to prep in an hour, per the title of the discussion. Okay. All right, so now keep in mind, if I've targeted that company or I've applied online, I've spent at least 5 minutes looking at their website and looking at their people, right? Okay, so first thing I do, I review the company, I review the interviewers, assuming I know who they are, and if I have a job description, I'm glancing at that. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you applied online, you had A and you had C. You already know that. And you already know your power story that aligns, that is the main bread and butter thing that you need for the interview. So now I'm spending a few minutes just looking at this to make sure that it's in order. I don't need to rehearse it a lot. There shouldn't be a lot of rehearsing. Next thing is, I'm going to make sure, though, that I'm going to review my power story, and I call them branches, and let me explain what this is. When I say a power story, going back to my CRM IT project management example, if I know I'm going to tell you in an interview, no matter what you ask me, I'm going to tell you that story. No one can stop me from telling that story. If you want to ask me about my greatest strength, I'm going to tell you about a project I ran that looks just like what you need. If you're going to tell me about how I overcome a great challenge or challenges, I'm going to tell you that story. If you ask me anything, I'm telling you that story. And then sometimes what they do is they say, what challenges did you encounter? That's a branch. You can go deeper. They say, what's your leadership style? You revert back to the story, but you peel off a branch or you peel off a leaf or whatever it is off the tree so that you're then going deeper into an additional aspect that's outside the 3 to 4 minute story that you told about how you ran this project. And so all I know is that after I reviewed all of this stuff and I got these stories in order, I don't need to relive and prep something that I did, that I've already refreshed my memory on because I absolutely knew I was going to need that because it's the best thing I have to sell me that matches me with what they need. Why am I spending a lot of time preparing that? I don't rehearse any of that stuff. I have a structure in my head that says you got to walk them through this stuff. All right, then what? Hang on, I'm losing my cards here because I got so many. All right. Then I would get my questions from my requirements. Now, 3 questions I absolutely would ask the right people, the hiring official, the management team, is I'm just giving you a little extra here. What does success look like? What problems do you anticipate we're going to encounter in advance of achieving that success? What are we going to have to overcome? And when we do overcome them, what would that value to you be? What would that mean in terms of dollars, cents, political capital, goodwill, relationships, cachet, brand recognition? Tell me. And why do you want all this stuff? Because it's chess, not checkers, and I need that so that I can show you how I'm going to help you achieve that success, how I've already overcome those problems you told me I'm going to encounter, and now I'm planting the value in my counter offer argument to make sure that I put that back on the table. That's when I say to them, you told me this was going to mean $2 million and infinite political capital, and it was going to make it easier for us to sell future projects and blah, blah, blah. They're going to get that back in their face when I got to make a counteroffer. And if I don't have that information, my counteroffer is a lot weaker. So when I'm prepping, I'm just making, there you go. You don't even need to prep that stuff. I gave you the questions. Okay, let's talk about some videos where you can watch more detail. But the main thrust here is you're doing a whole lot of work up front so that when you get in the game, you only have to spend minutes prepping. You don't need a lot of time. All right, one thing to watch: how to start your job search in the right place. Going to help you with your requirements, thinking through your direction and your path. The job interview formula, guaranteed to get you hired. I go through my CAR technique. This is a beauty that outlines exactly why I want you to use the CAR technique to tell interview stories. You can overlay this on your power stories and practice. Then this one, 3 powerful questions to ask in a job interview. Spoiler alert, the 3 powerful questions are what success looks like, what are the problems, and what's the value. But I go into more detail in that video if that's something that you're interested in. So now the only question is, do you understand why you don't need a lot of time to prepare for an interview? Do you understand how I can prep for these talks in 3 minutes? Can I get an amen on a Thursday or a Tuesday? If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, share it because people need help. Make sure you subscribe to the station. If you're here with me live, we're going to the chat. If you are watching this on recording, I'll see you next week.